Hello, welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and we're going right in. I'm doing something I've never done before. Today we are playing a deck made exclusively of starter cards. Cards you get when you enter the game. This is because I get asked every day on Twitch what new players should do. I'm a new player, what should I play? What packs should I get? This, that, other, what deck should I build? And I'm just gonna, you know what? You wore me down. Usually I would say, explore your creativity, figure out what kind of magic you like. I've realized people don't like this. What people want is to be told exactly what to do and one good reason why. So here you go. I'm telling you to play red-black artifact aggro. And why? Because it's competitive and you might win a game. So that is the why. I'm trying to decide whether or not to lead on this black, and I think I actually can. It sends a different message to my opponent than leading on a Spire or an Aether Hub, which is the level of importance of this Bomat Courier. If I play a Spire, then they might think it gives me any color mana, but that's more of a super advanced fringe case scenario that isn't that important. But anyway, this is a deck you can build 100% with starter cards because of the playsets of Kaladesh and Aether Revolt cards that Wizards is handing out to new players right now. If you sign up for the game, you get some very powerful cards, which is not usually the case. I certainly could tell you stories of the kind of decks I played in Ixalan, only Magic Arena. But anyway, that's like ancient history now. Send in our Bomat. See if our opponent would like to do anything about it. And red is just the most powerful color. This deck is 90% red, more than that actually, with just a little bit of black for this card, Unlicensed Disintegration. As long as you control an artifact, 3 damage to the controller, plus you destroy target creature. It's great against green, and that's the main reason it's hiding out in here. It's interesting not having a mountain, but I'm sure we'll find something. And with our hand being mostly colorless cards, it's also not a big deal. With our deck being mostly colorless cards, it's not a big deal. And yeah, here we are on ladder. I'm playing a deck that's 100% starter cards. This is a total experiment. Can we get a win or can we be competitive with it? And I'm 100% sure that you can be. I'm just trying to back it up. Trying to back it up for all of you, in case there are any doubters. And for those of you haters, you're going to say you're making everybody just play red when they start out. Playing red is so annoying. Yeah, because it's competitive and it's tough to beat, and it beats a lot of the decks that are out there. You will get matched against much tougher opponents the way that matchmaking currently works, but that's good for you. Learn to play some tough games and play some decks that are actually competitive so you can spar with those pay-to-win types. Our opponent has Goblin Chain Whirler. That's going to kill our Bomat Courier and leave them a 3/3, which is very good for them. However, we still have the Heart of Kiran, so we were able to mitigate the damage a bit. One question I'm wondering is if I want to play my Bomat Courier now. Our opponent could have another Chain Whirler, and the Bomat could just die. And having it out there not doing anything is sort of waiting to die to a Chain Whirler. So those are reasons not to. So I'm trying to think of a good reason to have it on the battlefield, and I really can't. I'm going to hold it instead. I can't think of a very, very, very good reason to keep it around. If our opponent does have second Chain Whirler, well, Zephyrian Void. So a deck with Goblin Chain Whirler and Zephyrian Void I don't approve of. Chain Whirler's triple red cost makes it very hard to cast. It worked out for our opponent this time, but if Zephyrian Void had been their second or third land drop, they'd miss their Chain Whirler. Not the way I do the magic, but then again, people can do whatever they want to. It's part of the joy of the game, you could say. A Rekindling Phoenix, that is a very tough creature to deal with. Very frustrating. However, we do have means. Our opponent, I don't know what's taking so long, though. They certainly could have completed the turn a little faster. Would have made my life better. Let's see. So we draw Chandra. We are going to attack with the Scrounger, because if it dies, we can get it back easily. And if our opponent dares block, we have Walking Ballista. So this is an easy attack for our Scrapheap Scrounger. think our opponent is going to block, which I find very surprising. And it does look like Rekindling Phoenix is going to be the blocker. So this is going to let me play Ballista for 2 and use a token to kill the Phoenix, and then we still have a Ballista. Also, next turn we can get our Scrounger back. Okay, opponent's going to take damage. They're falling to 11. It's getting to a point where burning them out is a very real thing. We could play the Chandra, which could draw some fire on us. But I think what I want to do is leave up Unlicensed Disintegration, use it on the Phoenix during our opponent's turn. It also plays around a potential Glorybringer, which is a big scary dragon they could be playing if they're on curve. And I think now I will play out the Bomat Courier. Just to have another body on the board. This also lets me play Walking Ballista for 2 next turn, and if the Bomat's still here, crew the Heart of Kiran with those 2 creatures and attack with Scrapheap and Heart of Kiran. And that's what I was afraid of. So not much I can do about that. Our opponent with a double Chain Whirler draw, very frustrating. So now let's see what our opponent wants to do to attack, as if they are too aggressive, we may be able to come right back and win. Our opponent is certainly a thinker. Okay, so now the strategy is, if we Unlicensed Disintegration the Chain Whirler, it does 3 damage to our opponent. They go to 8. The next turn, we untap, we play Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and we crew the Heart of Kiran with the Chandra and plus it. That does 6 damage, and Scrapheap Scrounger attacking does 3 more. So that is lethal, as long as our opponent doesn't play a mountain and have maybe a way to kill the Scrounger or somehow do more damage. So let's go for it. And I need my red mana, so that's a red. So we're gonna pay here. Tap this for colorless. Here is Unlicensed Disintegration on this Chain Whirler. And now the opponent is very, very dead. So add 1 mana of any color. We're going to choose red. We'll tap this one, pay 1 life to make red. Plusing the Chandra, this will deal 2 damage. Crewing the Heart of Kiran by removing a loyalty counter from a Planeswalker. And combat, attacking. We had lethal a few ways. This is just the way I chose that shows off the most abilities on the board. And we got there through what I would consider a more powerful draw from our opponent. They had Goblin Chain Whirler and Rekindling Phoenix. 2 Goblin Chain Whirlers, in fact. But we were able to take the game by just kind of outmaneuvering them. Let's get into the deck. 100% starter cards thanks to the way that Kaladesh and Aether Revolt are currently being given out. You get 4 of, that's playsets of several cards, including Chandra, Pia, Unlicensed, Aethersphere Harvester, Heart of Kiran, Scrapheap Scrounger, Bomat Courier, and Walking Ballista. This wouldn't be possible without these gifts. So it's important to keep in mind that if that ever changes, and I'm sure it will for open beta, this won't be an up-to-date video anymore. These won't be the starter cards they used to be. Other cards we get for starting out with our collection include 1-ofs for all mythics and 2-ofs for all uncommons and commons. Also 1-ofs for rares, which lets you play this 1 Skysovereign, this 1 Kari Zev, 2 Inventor's Apprentice, 2 Shocks, and the Lightning Strikes must be in the starter decks, but I have been told they are there, so that's where the deck comes from. A few cards you could craft right away to make the deck even stronger, but I don't think it's necessary. A Glorybringer and an excellent dragon worth crafting and adding to your deck using that rare wild card, and Hazaret, also a very good card to add to the deck. You could also add the Rekindling Phoenix, which is a card our opponent just played, and Goblin Chain Whirler to make the deck stronger. My honest opinion, and what I hope you will do, is not try to tech out this deck by adding those cards. This deck is very strong as it is. whether it has those cards or not doesn't change too much about the way the deck plays. What I hope you'll do is use this to start winning yourself some games, win yourself some gold, get your daily quest done, and build something else. Use the rest of your collection to explore the other sides of the format. Please use this to farm yourself some gold and some wild cards and get yourself some traction. Please don't just craft all your rare wild cards on Goblin Chain Whirlers, Glorybringers, and Hazards and just play like the absolute modded out version of this deck. This deck is fine and very close to and very competitive as it is. You don't need to tech it out with more of the same and learn only to play Magic one way. Learn other kinds of Magic, and we'll get into some other decks that you can build. There are plenty of other examples on this channel. So please, if you are a new player, don't marry yourself to this deck and only craft red cards for the rest of your life. I'm going to lose my voice preaching here. Please branch out. Use this. If you've got to use this to do your quests, do it. Then play something else. Work on something else. Craft something else. That's a lot better for you and all the people you have to play, because if everybody only plays this deck, Magic is not very much fun. All right. Let's do it. Pretty good hand. We're fighting that kid. It's not just a kid, it's that kid. That kid is Vivian Reed, a new Planeswalker in avatar form. And let's bring the Bomat. Submerge Boneyard from the opponent. Mountain off the top for us, not ideal. We will play out the Ballista to try to maximize our pressure on the battlefield rather than hold it for later. As we have 4 Ballistas, I'm sure we'll draw more at some point. And our opponent likely to kill this Bomat. Oh, a Glint Sleeve Siphoner. That's actually great. Happy to see that. Let's see what we can draw here. It is an unlicensed disintegration. Should we use it? We do have an option. I don't think our opponent really wants to block with this, but they might. And while our opponent's tapped out, this is very likely to resolve. It is our only source of black. If we draw another black card, we can't play it. So there is a cost here, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take a chance and just go for max aggression, put all the pressure on my opponent, and then hope that Chandra or these extra cards from Bomat Courier can carry the day. They're at 13, which is still a pretty high life total. We've got lots of work to do. And here is a Champion of Wits. That's going to draw 2 cards for our opponent, discard 2 cards. Our opponent appears to be on blue-black mid-range, and right now it's curving out with creatures and not removal spells, which is ideal for us, as we are trying our best to beat them down. We would rather not see our creatures dead. Okay, so 2 creatures get discarded. Looks like it's actually Grixis, as there's a red card there. So this is probably a deck built around the new Nicole Bolas Planeswalker. It's a very competitive, dangerous deck. We could pump the Ballista and minus it and get in our damage, but I think I'd rather get a Chandra on the board while our opponent's tapped out. And I'm going to minus the Chandra.
Best fire starter there is.
Chandra is likely to die. Our opponent's most likely play is going to be Swamp and Vraska's Contempt on our Chandra. Because of that, ticking it up is not nearly as valuable as ticking it down and killing our opponent's Champion with, so it can't block. And we can continue to get in our attacks and move up our Bomat Courier. I might have played it different if I hadn't drawn another Chandra. See, now when our opponent uses Vraska's Contempt and we can follow up with another Chandra, I feel just fine. Our opponent doesn't have the Swamp, so perhaps they can't cast their Vraska's Contempt, which is very annoying if you're in that spot. Having your mana wrong is one of the things about Magic that is different from other games, and probably the most frustrating. Our opponent does have a commit, though, which is like a Vraska's Contempt. It will put Chandra back into the deck. So away goes the Chandra. All right, we now have Chandra on top of our deck. So the question of whether or not we want to exile it and put it under this Bomat Courier, I am confident that we do. We also drew our other Chandra. So we can play our land, we can hold up mana to draw our Bomat Courier if our opponent does anything about it, and we can play this Chandra plus it and play Heart of Kiran. So we're going to have a massive turn, and if our opponent's going to come back, I'm not sure how.
You want to go, tough guy?
Yeah, let's make the mana.
This'll be easy.
Let's use it to play the Heart of Kiran. Let's pass the turn. And we still have a red mana open to sacrifice our Bomat Courier should anything bad happen to it. So it has 5 cards under there, including a Chandra Torch of Defiance that was on top of our deck. And yeah, it's just... the opponent's just in a horrible position at that point. We did our job. We did our thing. It worked. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Game 3 coming up. Opponent on the play. This deck loves to be on the play, so that's a little unfortunate. But we have a quick hand. It has early pressure in Inventor's Apprentice, Bomat Courier, Kari, and Scrapheap Scrounger, plus a Lightning Strike. So it's a very good hand. Our opponent plays a Swamp, which means they might have a Fatal Push. This inspires me to play Inventor's Apprentice instead of Bomat Courier. As Bomat Courier, you want to survive. Against Control, it's just much better to have a Bomat Courier than an Inventor's Apprentice that doesn't do much. However, our opponent is not Control. Our opponent appears to be the Snake deck. So, if I could do it all over again, my friends, I would do it differently. So, the question here is, do you kill the Winding Constrictor? The Snake deck, this is the key card, and it can definitely get out of hand. So, as much as I hate, when you're on the draw like this, I hate doing it, but this is the right play. It just feels so dirty. And now I do wish, in hindsight, I had played Bomat Courier instead, because now I would have 2 cards under the Bomat Courier and had done 2 damage to my opponent by now. But if you see a snake, you should kill the snake. You should bolt and somehow thwart the snake, if you can. Alright, that Walking Ballista is good to kill the elf. I don't know if at this stage we want to kill the elf. However, there is a saying, bolt the bird. So I think what I'm going to do here, tap this for colorless and play the Bomat Courier. That will pump up the Inventor's Apprentice. I'm going to shock the Llanowar Elf. We can't have our opponent playing an early Verdurous Gearhulk, which is a massive creature we don't have a way to kill right now. And it would absolutely take over the game if our opponent played it next turn. So we're going to play it safe again and shoot down that elf. Especially since our opponent didn't use their mana for anything else, we can assume that they have a hand with very large, dangerous cards. And now another Winding Constrictor. This is going to get really ugly really fast. Walking Ballista is here. It's going to kill our Bomat Courier. This is not great. Not great at all. Alright, we have to play our own Walking Ballista here. We can't attack, because if we do, the Winding Constrictor can block this, and then this Ballista can kill this Ballista, leaving this Inventor's Apprentice dead. So I think our best move is just to kill this Ballista now, before it can get even crazier out of hand and more dangerous. But we can't kill the snake, and we're stuck on 2 lands, so we are in a bad spot. Our opponent doing 1 damage to our face, and we're passing the turn. We very much need to draw land. Something to stay in this game. Our opponent's attacking with a snake. We can't block it. Not without our creature dying. And our creature is more important than our life total. That is not a land, but we can play this Heart of Kiran. Our opponent without a play, but I am very scared that next turn will be the Gearhulk that we killed the elf to avoid. And had we drawn lands, we might have been able to apply enough pressure to our opponent to get them in a more dangerous spot before the Gearhulk resolved. But now if that Gearhulk comes down, we are just in a very bad place. Rishkar is not a Gear Hulk, thank God, but is still going to be a beating, as it's both of these are going to be bigger creatures than we can really deal with. So now we have to somehow apply pressure and chump block at the same time. It's going to be hard. We have the Heart of Kiran, and we're going to need that to do the job. Here comes Pia Nalaar. I'm going to crew the Heart of Kiran. What do we want to block with? We can block with the Pia Nalaar or the Inventor's Apprentice. I actually don't think the third point of toughness is very useful right now, so I'm going to block with the Inventor's Apprentice. All right, and now the race is on. Let's see what else our opponent can do. A play like a Ballista or the Gear Hulk I've mentioned a bunch of times that hasn't happened yet would be absolutely devastating. A fatal push on the Heart of Kiran would be very devastating, or Vraska's Contempt for that matter. And I think it is definitely time that we have to take some chump blocks here. Aethersphere Harvester is a decent blocker, and it can block either one of these and gain some life. It only takes one person to crew it too, so it's a good card. The problem is we can't keep attacking and play it. It's still a very tough spot. I also feel like this mana I've held up does mean that our opponent has a removal spell. I'm almost certain of it. It's a very tough spot. Forgive me for thinking for a little while. Well, I think we have to be bold and play into the removal spell, because I don't think we can win either way. If the opponent has a removal spell, we lose, and if they have a bunch of lands in their hand, we win. So we have to take a chance that that's the situation and keep attacking into them. I'm also going to lead back another blocker so we're not dead on a crackback with an additional +1/+1 counter. There is the Vraska's Contempt. It took a while, but there it is. So we can... It's very bad that this is happening. Don't get me wrong. But we can keep our opponent from gaining the 2 life by sacrificing the Heart of Kiran in response. So I'm going to make it so the Scrapheap Scrounger can't block and sacrifice the Heart of Kiran so that our opponent doesn't gain 2 life. Then they're going to go down to 8, and we'll end the turn and see what they do next. Oh, the tension. It certainly feels as if our opponent has another Vraska's Contempt. Oh, a Ravenous Chupacabra. Yep, that will do. Our opponent tapped their Winding Constrictor for mana. Interesting. And then they undid it. So they meant to attack. And just the snake. I think I will take that damage, because my next turn is most likely to play an Aethersphere Harvester. So that messes up combat a little bit, and possibly I get to attack with the Thopter. Yeah, we're going to have to take that one. The reason we didn't attack with the Thopter last turn was in case our opponent had a way to put a +1/+1 counter on either of these. It would be lethal, and since it's a deck that does that, I thought that pretty likely. But they do have a Siphoner. Interesting. Okay, we draw a Lightning Strike. That can't be lethal, and it's going to be very hard to survive, but perhaps if we could Harvester block, go up to 8, then chump block another one, then next turn, Scrapheap and Harvester could swing in, and then Lightning Strike could be lethal. God, do I wish I had one more land. But the play is the Harvester. The lifelink might be able to keep us alive for a turn, and then the counterattack might be lethal. The Scrapheap Scrounger plans to crew the Harvester, while this Thopter is needed to chump block something else. Our opponent does pay the life for the card. And we're waiting for them to... Basically, any removal spell or a Walking Ballista is just lights out. So they haven't been windmill slamming anything yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they play very cautiously here. All right, crew it up. Nope, not with you, with you. If our opponent can kill this Harvester, there's also no way for us to survive. We did our best to draw out their removal, the Contempt and the Chupacabra. If they drew a third one, that's just the way it is, and so be it. So, good game to the opponent. It was a good game, and it's probably important to show that this deck is, while being competitive doesn't mean you always get to win. Sometimes we have to lose. However, we were definitely in it all the way down the stretch. Drawing an Unlicensed Disintegration and a couple more lands would have completely changed that game, and our opponent's draw was definitely respectable. All right. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that if you are a new player, you find this deck useful and it does good work for you. And I hope that your time in the arena is a good time in the arena. Well, this has been CG for me. I am CGB. This has been another day in the arena. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next day in the arena. All right, later, my friends.